not as overcast as I thought it would be today. But anyway, what's up you guys? Chet-Guthrie the Dream Poet here, coming to you all from East Brainerd, or Brainerd, however you want to look at it. It's the Chattanooga area. I thought it was supposed to rain today, but I think that might be later. But anyway, you guys, I'm going to show you all something that is very interesting because we are still on the topic of Native American Heritage Month. And that, my friends, my fans, my followers, is the Brainerd Mission Cemetery. Established in 1817 by the American Board of Commissioners of Foreign Missions, it played an important part in the educational development of Christianizing the Cherokee. Brainerd Cemetery contains the graves of whites and Indians who died at the mission, which was discontinued in 1838 at the time of the Cherokee removal. And strangely enough, here at the cemetery where this mission used to be, present day, there is a mall right beside it. Yes, strangely enough, how times change, you know, how cultures change. Where the mission used to be is right where a mall is now. And here's this cemetery, which dates back as far as 1817. Now, we're going to check out this cemetery real quick. We're going to take a look at it. And then there's another place we're going to be checking out today. And that is the Chief Vann House in North Georgia. Now, the mansion, they call that the show place of the Cherokee. It was one of the most beautiful houses that was built by the Cherokee Nation at the time. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I've never been down there. Who knows, maybe this rain is supposed to come in then. But let's check this out. Preserved by the Chickamauga, Nancy Ward, Judge David Campbell, John Ross chapter, DAR, John Sevier chapter. So looks like a lot of the names that keep this place kept up is on those plaques. And weirdly enough, this cemetery is supposedly opened like between 8 and 5. I think it's between 8 and 5. I know it closes at 5 o'clock, but it might be because it's a Sunday that I'm coming out here. It's very interesting. Look at the work on those wrought iron fences and what's leading up to the burial sites right up there. Which, I mean, I can understand why they'd probably put a gate and a fence like this around the cemetery, just because it's in the middle of town. You've got a lot of buildings surrounding this area, and you don't want people breaking into this cemetery and stealing headstones because they quote-unquote think it's cool or some weird morbid fact. One second, that right there is a giant tree, and that tree is very wide, and that is interesting how those giant ratchet straps are holding that tree in place. That tree is a very, very large tree. I would not want to be around that whenever it goes down, because that would cause quite a stir. And I'm right here, and it's right there. Sorry, that every time I see a tree that's old and large like that, I'm just baffled by it. That this thing probably was around during the time of the Cherokee Nation. I think that is a post oak. It's either a post oak or a red oak. It looks like this tree was cut down. Again, much like its sibling, it was a very large tree. And even though we cannot get into the cemetery today, we can still view the graves from the outside of the fence, which I think is kind of cool. Around the early 1800s, I mean, graves were different back then. Sometimes you would just have rocks or like wooden crosses to indicate where somebody was buried. But around this time, the graveyard right here, the cemetery, it was around this time that you would actually get a headstone. Now, some people well, in that case, probably would not get a headstone. I mean, you kind of see it in some of my other videos that I've done. You'll see like cemeteries and graves that are just rocks. Just kind of indicate the time of when things were. Kind of interesting how times change. Huh. And it looks like there was a tree around at one time that was on the outside of the cemetery. I mean, technically, I guess you could, if you wanted to, you could probably jump that, but I'm not going to. That's trespassing. So we're going to admire the beauty of the cemetery from right here. Just check this out. Look at the original rock work in that. That is impressive how they did those things back then. And here's the other front entrance of the cemetery. Brainerd Mission Cemetery. And as I was saying, if you look right here, it says open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I was a little bit off. So I kind of thought that maybe the cemetery would be open, but I guess not. But you know, it's good that they keep it protected, because you wouldn't want somebody to disturb these graves. What's this right here? Site of the Brainerd Mission to the Cherokee Indians, established by the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions in 1817. First called Chickamauga, changed to Brainerd in 1818. Maintained with aid of the United States government until the removal of the Indians in 1838. Here 40 buildings were erected and hundreds of Indians were Christianized and educated. Erected by the Chickamauga chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution, 1924. So in 1924, this was erected. And now you guys, we're gonna make the hour drive. We are heading down to the Chief Vann House. It's very incredible for its time. It was considered to be the showplace of the Cherokee Nation, and it's got an interesting history to it. Here goes a plane. I mean, it's a very noisy area, as you all can tell. So anyway, we're gonna get down there and we're gonna check out the mansion. I don't know about you guys, but this overcastish weather makes me tired. But nonetheless, we are here at the Chief Vann House. You see, Chief Vann, he was the wealthiest man in the Cherokee Nation at this time in the early 1800s. And he was also the up-and-coming chief of the nation as well. And this sign explains it a little bit better. Built of locally made brick in 1804, this house, the finest in the Cherokee Nation, was the home of a town chief, James Vann. Son of a Scotch trader, Clement Vann, and his wife, a Cherokee chieftain's daughter. Around his home were several of his business ventures and many acres of land tilled by his slaves. Sponsor of Spring Place Mission, shrewd, amiable, but violent, James Vann shot his brother-in-law in 1808, and in accordance with tribal law was killed by relatives in 1809. His son Joseph Joe Rich Vann, 1798 to 1844, inherited his estate, increasing the wealth and influence of the Vanns. When expelled in the early 1834, Chief Joseph Vann fled to Tennessee and settled, finally at Weber's Falls, Oklahoma, racing his steamboat, the Lucy Walker, on the Ohio River. He died when the overheated boiler exploded near Louisville, Kentucky in October of 1844. The tempting prize of white men, the Vann House was the scene of a bloody battle between rival claimants in 1834, deteriorating since it was purchased in 1952 by a group of public-spirited citizens of Atlanta. Chatsworth and Dalton then decided deeded to the Georgia Historical Commission, restored to its original grandeur. It is a monument to the culture of the Cherokees. Okay, I did not realize that there was so much bloodshed associated with this house, but now I know. Back at the cemetery, all I knew was that the Chief Vann House was the showplace of the Cherokee Nation. So anyway, guys, let's go on a tour. Let's check it out. Okay, right now we're waiting for the tour. Our next one is 4 o'clock. But I think we're going to check out the visitor center. We're going to check out the display. And we're also going to check out some of the smaller cabins that are here by the visitor center. So let's do it, you guys. And if y'all are curious, here is what the Vann Mansion property looked like. Looks like for its time, it was the largest plantation in the Cherokee Nation. Let me see. You've got a cultivated field. Of course, Cherokee stickball field. Joe Vann's horse racket rack. And looks like the house is probably somewhere around in here. Here's a bit more history on the Vann plantation. The largest and most prosperous plantation in the Cherokee Nation included the brick mansion and 95 other buildings, 805 acres of cultivated land, 1,133 peach trees, and 147 apple trees. As many as 150 people lived on the plantation in the 1830s, including Joseph Vann and his wives Jenny and Polly, and at least 11 of their children, 110 slaves, overseers and their families, and also Moravian missionaries and Cherokee students attending the spring place. Note, the exact locations of Vann's outbuildings are not known. This map shows their possible locations based on an 1830s government property evaluation. Oh, so it's not entirely exact. That's still pretty cool that he had a Cherokee stickball field. Let's go check out these exhibits. Home and hearth. Furnishings inside the Cherokee homes of the early 1800s reflected a mix of traditional Cherokee culture with pioneer American culture. Most Cherokee homes had not only traditional items such as blowguns, corn grinders, pottery, and baskets, but also items purchased at local stores such as iron pots, rifles, English china, and tin cups. So, for the time, I mean, it was a pretty pretty industrialized era around that time, or it was on its way to being an industrialized era. There we go. And now we've been here before. That was Chief Vann's hotel and restaurant, or his tavern, I should say. And right beneath that, here is a basket from 1805 that was probably made by one of James Vann's African slaves. The construction and design are very different from Cherokee baskets from the early 1800s. Well, I can kind of see that. I mean, I can understand here, because Cherokee baskets are a lot different than bundling it up like that. And this talks a little bit more about the Moravian mission at Spring Place, not far from the Vann Mansion. Although this talks a little bit about who the Moravians were. Looks like some of the history right there. And Joseph Vann, of course, James Vann's son. This talks a little bit more about his ventures. He did live in the house for a while. Here's his violin in really, really good shape. Apparently, it looks like part of the violin were made in Bavarian spruce that date back to 1695. And of course, James Vann's will, but of course, not the real one. That's a pretty important document if it's the real one, but that's the reproduction copy. And here we have some statues of the Vanns, just kind of peering off into the distance, staring at me in a weird way. But looks like the Vann House was also a very prominent stopping point. Even one president stayed here at one point, James Monroe. Apparently he visited the Vann House. And here are some more artifacts that were found in the house. Some old early plates, old silverware that looks like it has seen better days. Some old pictures of the family. And as I just mentioned it a second ago, here is what a Cherokee basket looks like compared to what you saw over there that was made by African slaves. Here is how Cherokee basketry is done. I think it's made out of oak, like oak. Shoot, I can't think of it. But anyway, it's the oak bark. Looks original land lottery deed for the plot of land that Spring Place Moravian Mission was located on, with the seal attached. That's pretty old. Pretty interesting that that still exists to this day. And I think we touched up a little bit on this outside, but there was a dispute between somebody who had gotten the land lottery to James Vann's house, and it was a gunfight. Looks like there's a mark of one of the was burning log, this was a burning log was thrown on the stair landing to smoke all the occupants from the house. This mark is still visible. Looks like we've got Rebecca Tilithia Peoples Humphreys, January 15th, 1844 to March 28th, 1937. And this Cherokee deerskin bag was made in the early 1800s. Apparently this lady lived in the area in the early 1800s. Apparently that was the bag that was acquired. The remnants left behind, a lot of Cherokee were picked up right from where they were sitting and they were moved. And a lot of stuff got left behind. Looks like this double weave river cane Cherokee basket dyed with walnut was found in a log cabin in 1838, shortly after the Cherokee family who had lived there was forced west. So again, it's practically like everything. They dropped everything. But that's what I was trying to remember. The Cherokee baskets were made out of river cane. They would split the river cane, they'd wet it down, they'd dye it, and then they'd weave it together, and that's how you'd get Cherokee basket weaving. Brick from the 1827 Delila Vann McNear house. Looks like there is some buttons of the Cherokee clothing at the time. And looks like there's an iron kettle fragment in the back right there. And this is very fascinating. This is Delila Vann's 1827 mantle. So I believe, of course, not I believe, but this mantle was removed from the house. It's very interesting that they still have it in such a great condition, even all these days later. Delila Vann, apparently Mr. and Mrs. L. Buster Davis preserved Delila's mantle in a barn for almost 50 years before donating it to the mansion. That is so cool. So, it was in a barn for 50 years after being taken out of the house. How interesting. And right there, that is a Cherokee iron pot. This pot belonged to a Cherokee Indian family. It looks like that's what they used to cook various goods with. But still, I mean, that's so cool to see Delila Vann's mantle here and hear some of its history. And it looks like these are some old columns as well. Looks like these are from the John Martin house that was torn down in 1975. But I think it's interesting. If you look at the wood, I'm betting to guess that's American chestnut. Looks like you got two of the mantles right there. The third one right there. And now here's a recreation display of David and Delila McNair's gravesite. Their children, being natives of the Cherokee Nation and having to go with their people to the west, leave this monument not only to tell of their regard for their parents, but to guard their sacred ashes from the unhallowed intrusion of the white man. Huh. That is very sad. Now, as we talked before, we talked a little bit about James Vann's tugboat, or his not his tugboat, but his riverboat. You know, he was racing it, and it exploded. And here is a recreation of what it looked like. She was about 144 feet long. Looks like that's some of the stuff from their home over in Oklahoma. Looks like Robert Preston Vann's violin from the late 1800s. He loved his violin just as much as his grandfather did. Looks like there's another brick right there. And here's what the house looked like back in the 1950s before it was restored. For several years it sat abandoned. I'm very glad that this building was saved. An important piece of Cherokee history was saved. Okay, let's check out the cabins. I don't know, it's overcast, or overcast days like this make me both tired and energized because it is the fall. Of course, the Chief Vann House was put on the National Registry of Historic Sites sometime in the 70s. And here it talks a little bit about the land campaign donors. And right over here are the cabins. So I think real quick, we're gonna check out these cabins before we head inside. Cherokee Farmstead Exhibit. Original 1800s Cherokee Indian buildings. Now, as it said on the map inside, this is not the exact location of where these houses would have been, but it is nice to see that, or maybe they are, sugarcane cabin. So this was the sugarcane cabin that was on the property at the time. So let's go inside. Of course, got the grinding wheel, how they would do it all. Got a little bit of tobacco growing on the property, or I think that's tobacco, or maybe that's the sugar cane itself. I believe that's what they would use to mash it up with. And of course, we've got a scythe and some various hammers that are from the time period. Probably some stuff that you'd see that blacksmiths would use. We've got an axe from the time, some grinding stuff, woodworking tools, and Cherokee Smokehouse donated by Miss Ann in memory of Joseph Edward Hempel. Huh, how interesting. Got some tools right there. And we have this old tool chest. Looks like there is some woodworking stuff in there. And watch your head. Watch your head is right. Because I don't want to get knocked out. That's cool. They had one of those over at the Neochota State Park. Something that you would see that would pull, that the horses would pull. That's where all your tools would go. Looks like stuff you'd hook up your horses and bulls with to get work done. And this is the Coahulla Creek corn crib, early 1800s Cherokee corn crib. Now, I like the fact that unlike the Cherokee Neochota site, you couldn't really go into these buildings, but looks like these you can. Apparently that's the Kahlua corn crib site. That's everything that they would use. Looks like various horse stuff. It's like something you would use to mash corn with and other grains. Huh, in a basket. Corn crib donated in 2007. We must watch our heads. Now, before we go on the tour, there is one more house that is here in this spot, or I should say cabin. And that is this right here. Scarecorn Creek Cabin. It's an early Cherokee house. And if that was a true person, they would have scared the crap out of me. Oh, cool, and it lights up. But no heat. But yeah, during the time, this is what you'd kind of expect from a house such as this. A little bit dark, kind of cozy. Your kids and you would be sleeping probably up there. That would also be maybe used as storage. But yeah. I like the fact that she's just hiding there, and there's the fire.
Where you say y'all from?
Huntville.
Okay.
Next to Huntsville.
Okay. Still not out on man.
Oh wow. Oh, this is cool. This is really cool. And this is really interesting, you guys. For a long time,
It's well constructed, of course.
Was not here, and this was actually the oldest cantilever staircase in the state of Georgia. It's right there.
That's one thing. We have
It
kind
goes
of
all the
throwaway
way up
mentality,
here.
unfortunately, for a lot of stuff nowadays.
Kind of looks like a
Real
door.
good construction. It
But
was
for a
built,
long
the
time, a
house
lot of
was
people
by
called this the
combination
floating
of Cherokee
staircase.
laborers. We've got some pictures. If you look through that calendar that's for sale up there in the museum, the runs of the Vann House, one of their items, it shows pictures and those big round bales of hay you see in the fields.
Yeah.
And there's one sitting right here. Ruined the floor. If you look across the dining room here, you can see some of the original hard pine on the second half of the room back there where it didn't get damaged, but all this had to be replaced in here.
This is original flooring. Oh, I think that's one of the burn marks. But everything is when there was that land dispute.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about
Yeah, it was.
Of course, there's
Got to where it was
Chief Vann himself.
Dr. Bradford, who owned it, couldn't even rent it out.
right next to the fireplace.
So we kind of drift through here and stayed for a night or two.
Imagine,
It was,
different
it
time,
was not
different
being loved there
place.
for a good number of years.
Just enjoying the view.
But unfortunately, it wasn't brick
Cool
design.
summer's day.
Things that I
And
come
there's the
across
fake
people call
food.
me about, and, you know,
Although,
luckily in the
not
1900s,
gonna
somebody
lie,
put a
that
metal
hand
room
looks
on,
pretty
and
real.
that preserved it. Knowledge, why certain colors were big. Some people go, oh, it was the green of the forest and the gold of the wheat and the cornfields or something. We really don't know. It might have just been that they like these colors. These colors were available at
the
hardware
dyes and
store.
stuff.
This is
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's what they could get. This is the only, the dining room we just live, sorry, I should have mentioned, is the only room that only has the one color, and that's that green. Sometimes in the kitchen areas
That
and
old
dining room
piano.
areas, the paint they used purposely
Apparently,
had some
this
arsenic
was the
and
living
other
room.
chemicals in it that deterred
Looks like they
pests
had
from getting in there.
looks
So
like
you
they
kind of
had
cut down on your
pears
insects
and
in your
other
pantry or
fruits,
in your dining room.
other
You weren't
pots.
eating
Cut down on
on-
anybody
yeah,
living.
you weren't eating off anything.
this
you know,
was
it was
beautiful.
Kind of like we have
From what I
asbestos in the
understand,
walls now. As long as we don't
this is
disturb that
original.
wall,
You're
it's
all right,
okay. And
yeah.
same with some of these
Oh,
paints.
wow.
It's kind of like the lead paint we had to get rid of on the windowsills.
So apparently,
in the earlier years,
this-
so, kids chew
that
on it
there
or
was
something like that.
like
They
paint
don't
on the
disturb
window
it, they wouldn't
sills in the
issue
early
you
days.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the furniture
Still have
isn't
a lot of
original,
traditional
but
beliefs going
imagine,
on and
I mean, some
crafts
of the
still
Vann
available.
family
You know, he
did
was buying,
donate some old
the best
furniture
he
to
could
the
buy.
house.
He went to Charleston and stuff to
This is
bring
so
back
interesting
stuff.
that
If
they
you would
still
have had
have this.
traditional basket work still around, you know, even some of the handmade pottery would have definitely.
And this is an absolutely beautiful fireplace.
You know, they were starting to use oak and other
Absolutely
stuff in
gorgeous.
later years.
I guess we're going upstairs now. Again, just check out that stair. That's so cool. Very interesting. Okay, in the museum, you guys, they talked a little bit about the burns. Well, this is it right here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the,
Yep. It's crazy to think that those are over hundreds of years old.
absolutely.
But yeah, you guys, That is crazy. In the next room, they're doing the tour, but I thought I'd show James Ridge's, well, his room. Obviously, he was a pretty big gambler. And for the time, well, this is where the master bathroom would be. Yes, the pot. All right, you guys, there is a third floor to the mansion right here. Okay, and this is where the kids would live. You have a few things right here, like Cherokee stickball, the addle, chunky stone, and the bed. By the way, they call this the casket room. And over from the boys' room, here is the girls' room. Now, kind of cool for its time. You would see nothing but fields back then. But anyway, let's get downstairs. Well, unfortunately, my phone died. I'm sitting out here at the visitor center. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a vlog on this one. My main camera died while I was in the house. But anyway, guys, thank you all for staying posted and staying tuned. I got another awesome video coming for you all soon. Remember, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Always means a lot. Goes to show that y'all care and that y'all want to see more awesome videos. So without further ado, you guys, this vlog is over.